hopping on the call. I appreciate it big time. But my first question is, where do you get your name from?
It's kind of a long story, a good story too. So we were going to New York during Fashion Week years and years and years ago. I was with a buddy of mine who's a pretty prominent guy, but we were young, so we didn't really have access to much as far as, access to ton of resources to get a hotel room or anything else, or even just to get into parties down in New York. So when we went, we were about 20 minutes outside of New York City. And back in the day, Fashion Week in New York City was something that was like impossible to get a hotel room or get into parties or anything else. So my friend and I were driving down. I had made, some pretty decent money. I just bought like a big, huge Mercedes back in the day. And I just told him, I said, look, pull over on the side of the road. And he's like kind of a nervous guy. So he was like nervous. He's like, well, what are we going to do? How are we going to get a room? Like, we're not going to have a room down there. We're not going to get any parties. And he's like, he's just more worried about his image. He's one of those guys, but he's a really good guy. So I said, look, just relax. We're going to be just fine. So we pulled over about 5 minutes away from the hotel. We actually went to I think it was the Tribeca Grand or the Soho Grand. At the time was one of the hottest New York City hotels, super boutique hotel. All the celebrities, everyone else is staying there. So pull over about 5 minutes from the hotel. I said, get out. And he goes, why? I said, get in the driver's seat. And he goes, what? I'm like, look, you're going to drive. You're going to pull up. I'm going to sit in the back. He goes, what are you talking about? I go, I'm no longer by my name. I'm the Chancellor now. You refer to me as the Chancellor. He goes, what are you talking about? And I could just follow my lead. So we pulled up in front of the hotel. I told him, get out and just open the door. And then they'll come over and greet us, the hotel, of course. So they come over. And so we had called up 2 minutes before we get outside. And we said, I had called personally. I said, the Chancellor is, I said, hello. I said, the Chancellor is 5 minutes from the hotel. Please prepare the rooms. And they said, we're sorry, we don't have a reservation for the Chancellor or anyone with the last name Chancellor. I said, this is not my issue. My issue is I'm the driver for the Chancellor, and please prepare his room. Do I need to speak to your boss? And they said, oh, I think there's an oversight here. I said, there is no oversight. Now we're 4 minutes from the hotel. Please secure everything as it's supposed to be. So when we got there, we pulled up and they were outside and they said, what party are you with? To my friend who's driving. And he says, I'm with the Chancellor. And he says, okay, no problem. Come with us. So they walk us to the front desk. They bring us into like the first, the credit card goes down and all that, and we pay for it. And we go to the first room, and the first room was only okay. It wasn't great. It was great for anyone who wanted a room at Fashion Week because you couldn't get a room. But for us, I wanted the best of the best. So I said, this is not proper. This is not where I stay. And so the guy, they brought me downstairs. I'm like, we're so sorry. I said, there's no reason for sorry. There's only reason to make things better. And I smiled and I gave them like $100 tip. And so then they said, one moment, please. And they were all frazzled. So, and I always dress nice or whatever. So they went back upstairs and they brought us upstairs and they brought us to like this ridiculous like penthouse. And I said, this is closer to my liking. We'll stay here. So we just shut the door. My friend looks at me and he was sick to his stomach. He was bright white. He's like, what did you just do? And I'm like, well, you wanted to travel with the Chancellor. You got to travel with the Chancellor. And he just ever since, that was the name. And that's like the honest to God truth story. He's very prominent guy now in the business world. So I don't want to put his name out there, but if he gave me permission, I'll share it with you. It's one of the funniest stories ever of becoming who you want to become, right? That's who we became.
Yeah.
We had an unbelievable time. We had the best spot in the place for Fashion Week, and then the hotel started calling all the parties for us, acted as a publicist, got us into every party. And look, if you act the part, you look the part, you are the part. And that's what happened. That's how I got the name, the Chancellor.
After that moment, you started approaching people saying, my name's the Chancellor?
No, I never really used the name again because there was no reason to, right? Because I'm a really humble guy from humble beginnings. And I more or less just would rather go unnoticed and just go about my
Hmm.
business. But with that situation, it's kind of like Clark Kent wants to be Clark Kent, but then when he has to put on that Superman cape, he became his alter ego. And I just kind of became my alter ego, which was the Chancellor. And I never lied, never misled anyone, paid for the hotel and everything else. It wasn't really about money with the hotel. It was more about access because the room rates were the room rates. And when you go to a hotel like that, they will upgrade you if they feel it's deemed and warranted. And they just knew I was the Chancellor that day, and a lot of it is just how you carry yourself and how you act and how you're appropriate and how you're respectful to people. But I always remember FPAC, which is firm, polite, authoritative commands. If you
Hmm.
ask for something, generally you don't get it. But if you say to someone, bring me to my room, please, and you point your hand to them like, come on, let's go. And you
Mm.
smile, they bring you to your room. That's what happened that day, to be honest with you, buddy.
Growing up, when did you realize you wanted to get a job like this, or did you not realize it's like your 20s, 30s?
Yeah, like when I was in my early 20s, I worked pretty hard while everyone was kind of at the bar and doing all the nonsense. I was pretty
Mm.
much working, making money and putting, trying to put some away, but also reinvesting in myself and my brand. A lot of people like, oh, the guy blows so much money. I'd go to parties and stuff like that. But I remember, a friend's dad of mine had said years ago, he says, about me, he says, the the wise can play the fool. No, the wise man can play the clown, but the clown can never play the wise man. And what he meant
Mm.
by that is like you can play the fool as long as you're wise, but you can't be the clown and try to play the wise man because people don't buy into it. And what I mean by that is like, I never really get into drinking, never get into drugs. I always tried to stay with things and in my lane because I knew that the chips are already against me. And why they're already against me is, when you don't grow up in a place that, maybe you're very privileged, it becomes very difficult, like to get ahead in anything because you don't have a lot of people rooting for you. You don't have a lot of experience. You don't have people cheering for you. You don't have a lot of ins. You have to create and
Mm.
make your ins. And I said, if I have to be sharp as I possibly can in anything that I do that goes against my sharpness, is going to ruin things for me. So that's why I always kind of just stayed razor sharp. I always try to dress really sharp, always look really clean, never be sloppy with actions, with words, with, smoking, drinking, smelling, nothing. You just really have to be sharp. And it's not what you say. A lot of times it's what you don't say. It's knowing what not to say. It's doing the homework before you get to a place. Before I'd go to a place, I'd know the history of the place. I might even call the place, find out who a GM is. I'd call anonymously, just so I kind of hustled all the pieces of the puzzle and all the infrastructure.
Hmm.
It's really important people don't do their homework, and homework's free, especially a lot of young kids now with Google. There's zero reason why you can't know so much about, what your competition is, what your goal is, what your objective is. You just research stuff. It's free. It's easy. It's
Yeah.
almost like the word extraordinary. Most people don't understand the word extraordinary, right? No one's
Mm.
extraordinary. The people that are extraordinary are the people that just put the word extra in front of ordinary. Anyone can do it. I'm not special. No one's special. That's, even just like how I approached Tyson Fury and how I get in so deep with Tyson Fury is I just did the extra that people weren't willing to do. And I prepared better than everyone. And I had a game plan of what I wanted to do. And, a lot of those years of putting time in and effort in, whether it was having an ice cream truck in high school and college after high school and college, or working as a dishwasher, whatever jobs I took, there's value in every single step along the way. And people don't want to do those type jobs. They want to start right at the top. It's like you graduate to something and you're only going to get better. If I could go back, I think the military is probably the greatest regret that I have. I wish I went to the military and learned about structure and about discipline. And I think that's so helpful. And if you can't go to the military, let's say you have some sort of physical ailments or whatever it may be that doesn't allow you to be in the military, go and work at like a McDonald's at 14 or 13 years old and learn the system. That system's
Mhm.
perfect. It's beautiful. You know, the guy from Papa John's went and worked at a local pizza place because he wanted to be a pizza conglomerate, you know, and he went ahead and he learned the pizza business. I remember reading that about him. I know he's made some, you know, stupid mistakes with his mouth, but you know, his work ethic, that's what he did in the beginning. He went and worked at whatever, like a Pizza Hut or a Papagino's to kind of learn how to make a pizza business successful. Why not go and
Yeah.
learn success from an already proven model, you know?
Mhm. But moving on from that, when you go up to people, when you started out learning all the information from people, how would you approach someone to just get them all comfortable?
Authentic, just straight up. If you try to be something you're not, people see right through it, you know? Like if you really, it's almost like you have to feel it. Like when I became the chancellor that day, I was the chancellor. There's no way around it. I
Mhm.
was the chancellor. You couldn't tell me I wasn't. I wasn't lying. That's my new nickname. That's who I am. It's very
Mhm.
similar to, you know, I remember I met a girl years ago in a pool at the Ritz Carlton down in Miami, and we were talking, and it's just crazy because just small talk or whatever. Like, so what do you do? She's like, I'm a model. I'm like, you're a model, and she said, yeah. I said, oh, that's great. You know, I'm like, I just assumed, to be honest with you, I assumed that she really wasn't a model because she wasn't really all that attractive. She was decently
Mhm.
attractive, but she wasn't so crazy attractive that you'd say, oh, yeah, obviously you're a model.
Yeah.
So what I did was when I was talking to her, I just said, like, you know, a little bit like more about like what else do you do for income. She says, I don't think you understand. I'm a model. I don't really do anything. I make a lot of money as a model. And I was like, wow, that's interesting. And she goes, you know what? She goes, look away for a minute. And I looked away and I came back to her and she just completely changed the tilt of her head and the look of her face. And I looked at it, I was like, holy shit, like this girl's like, now she looks like a model because she became that model. However she moved her face and her eyes and her hair or whatever she did, I was like, oh my God, like she really is a model. And then it's like she became a model. You know what I mean? It's not,
Mhm.
it comes from inside. As humans, we all forget that these feelings come from inside. It's like a boxer. Like look at Tyson Fury, right? You look at Tyson Fury. Does he have that body of a boxer? No. Does he have that smooth like movement of a boxer? No. But he's a boxer. He is a fighter. He's a fighter within a fighter, and he becomes it. And you see some of his videos. I mean, he ducks punches better than Ali. It's like, how
Mhm.
does he do it? Because he becomes that. You have to become things, and you have to believe it, and you have to do the work before believing it so that you can become it. Like that girl in the pool was the perfect example where she went from being very plain Jane to turning her head and by, you know, all of a sudden I looked at it, I was like, oh my God, she's like a supermodel, you know? So
Yeah.
that's just kind of how it is. I hope that I answered the question, you know, to the best of my ability.
Definitely. Did you ever have thoughts when you get in where you are, where you're like, I don't know, I want to do this, but you stuck with it?
Oh, there was so many times where, you know, there was such failures. Like, I mean, if you ever could understand the failures of like rejection, you know, wanting to put your head down and cry, embarrassment. There's just so many things that it's like the easiest way to explain it is you ever watch like they do like halftime shows, like let's just say a hockey game, right?
Yeah.
And the halftime show of the hockey game, they'll do like they'll bring the plywood thing over the net and they'll have like a little circle to shoot through. You ever see
Mhm.
that from center ice? You got to shoot the puck through that
Yeah, I've
little
seen those
circle.
before.
So
Yeah.
like no one ever scores, right?
Mhm.
Well, I'm the type of person that if you put me at center ice, even if I wasn't a hockey player, I'm going to stay out there if they allow me and take as many shots as humanly possible until that thing goes in.
Mhm.
Because I believe every next shot, there's a chance of it going in. Even if, you know, the people are yelling and the people like, you're terrible, go home. I'm not going to hear them. I'm only going to hear what I
Yeah.
want. And that's, you know what? Believe that your next shot's going in. Believe it, believe it,
Mhm.
believe it, believe it, believe it. Even if it doesn't go in, I still have even gotten closer to the prize every single time. And that's what people forget.
Mm-hmm.
People quit too easy. And I'm no hero. It's just the way I'm wired. It's like I refuse to quit. And that's what you have to do. You just can't quit on things. And quitting might be as simple as like, you know, going to take a cigarette break or going to take a jewel hit or going to whatever it may be. That's quitting. It's
Yeah.
focusing on what you want so badly that you get it. That's not quitting. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, there was many times I wanted to quit and give up, but that wasn't the answer. I knew what the answer was of where I wanted to be. And I think they say like good things take a long time to get to. And I'm very happy. I'm very grateful.
What was that first moment when you realized, like, wow, I'm feeling successful right now? Like, what was that first moment?
I mean, that's a great question. I don't even really know. It's usually after an event, like when everything's done and everyone's happy and everyone's sitting back and everything's settled. That's when you feel the
Mm-hmm.
best. Like during the moment, like there's no moment in time where I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm here. Like I've never had like a pinch me moment, if that's what you're asking.
Yeah.
Because I've always just felt like I belong. Like anything that I do, it's yeah, this is the plan. You know what I mean? This has been the plan and this is what you get, you know, with the plan. I mean, I guess it's probably like, a baseball player, they go up to bat, like, do they feel like every time they get hit a home run? No. But if they've taken so many practices and they've hit so many different times in a practice a home run, when they hit that home run, they're not like, oh, I'm so surprised, like pinch me moment. It's like, yeah, I better hit a home
Mm-hmm.
run. I've been doing this with no crowd and no one watching for so long that, yeah, like there hasn't really been that moment. There's been some great things. Like, there maybe one pinch me moment was when I took Jay-Z and Beyonce to go meet President Sarkozy in France. That was kind of a pinch me moment. There was just the four of us, Carla Bruni, President Sarkozy, that's Carla Bruni's wife, Jay-Z and
Mm-hmm.
Beyonce, walking through, the equivalency of the French in Paris there, like our White House, they have a French White House, the Royal Palace. Walking through that was kind of like surreal for sure, the guards and kind of people standing at attention as you walk through, and then this, the servers, and that was kind of a pinch me moment, because I thought that was really cool. But at the same time, too, I felt more comfortable than they felt comfortable because when you're just being yourself, it's so easy. It really is. It's like
Yeah.
it's so easy. It's like when you're really being yourself, it's not. It's kind of hard to explain. It's almost like a zone. Like you hear like whatever Michael Jordan or these people talking about a zone. There's no comparison. Me being in a zone that I'm Michael Jordan, right? But when I'm in the zone of
Mm-hmm.
just being myself, of being the glue and being the connector of many things, it's kind of like I'm in my own zone, and it just works. It feels good, you know what I mean? And I don't have any
Yeah.
special talents or resources or qualities. It's just I've put so much work in that I'm comfortable at it.
Yeah. What has been your best interaction with celebrity? Because you've known a ton of Kevin Hart, Chris Rock, talk about Jay-Z, but what's been one of the best, I should say, at least?
I mean, I would say Chris Rock's just hilarious. I mean, he's not as funny in person. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but it's just his facial reactions. You'll say something and he'll just look at you in such a way that it just makes you feel like Jesus Christ, like this dude's hilarious. Like I don't know how to explain it. You kind of have to be there to see it. But he's someone who I think the moment that was really like changed my outlook on things. I had called Chris a couple times and he hadn't gotten back to me. Now here's a guy who pretty much picks up every call, always reaches out, always says what's up. But I'd hit him a couple times and he hadn't hit me back. And so I was kind of irritated. It was after like a couple months and not hearing from him. So I try to give people the benefit of the doubt. You don't know what they're going through personally, professionally, whatever. So I just sent him a message like, bro, it's not a big deal. We've been friends forever. Like, if you don't want to be friends, like, move on. It's cool. Like, but just, I want to make certain that you're good. And he called me back. He's like, he goes, hey, I'm like, yeah. He goes, I'm really sorry. And I'm like, for what? Like, you don't got to be sorry. I just found it weird. Like, I don't, you know what I mean? I've never begged for friendship. Like, it's
Yeah.
just, we have a good relationship, like, whatever. And he's like, no, he's like, you don't understand. He's like, the whole comedian thing. And I'm like, no, I really don't. I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, in order for us to be funny, a lot of times we have to find a very, very lonely place in our minds and our head. And he goes, sometimes I go into that very lonely and sad and quiet place. And I go, wow. I'm like, that's so harsh when you really think about it. But that's kind of the opposite of being funny, right? So you have
Yeah.
to get yourself into extreme situations to be able to get to the funny thing. It's like the opposite end of the spectrum is what? Is probably solitude, quiet, non-communicative, maybe depressed, maybe sad, maybe dark.
Hmm.
So that's where he was. And I just took it as like personally, you know what I mean? Like, oh, a guy just doesn't want to talk to me, not realizing that he did. He just has to, some people have to do what they have to do to get into their part of where they want to be. So I always found that, you know, I found that very amazing. I think probably that was one of the coolest things ever, I'll be very honest, was like, the stereotype about people being Southern.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying with that.
So I work with the royal family of Saudi Arabia very closely for many years. So I remember going backstage. We were going to meet Prince. One of the princes I was with wanted to meet Jay-Z and Beyonce, and his family wanted to go back. I think it was, yeah, I forget if they had kids or not at the time, J and B, but I remember her being so gracious and like more or less like just really showing that Southern hospitality to us. Like grabbed us like plates of food, brought them over to us. Like, what else do you want? Like, can I get you a drink? And I just thought that was so amazing to see that in her, because here she is like this, super celebrity with people all around her and assistants all around her. And here she is putting the personal touch to it. Like, I thought that was really amazing to see her getting really back to her human, even when she's on a grand stage. You know what I mean? I really thought that was super cool.
Hmm. So now we move on to Tyson and Tommy. How did you get that gig to start with?
Which one to get in with Tyson and Tommy?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's just like, I have a lot of social currency, and what I mean by that is I have a lot of friends and years of, making relationships that it's easier for me to navigate through each city because I have point people in every city that is like real relationships that I can reach out to and
Hmm.
call, just like you come back home from college and you can make 3 calls and pretty much get whatever you want, right? Because you have those type of
Yeah.
relationships. Well, I've been working, for so many years to have those in every city, and I've always, tried to do my best by people. And sometimes in deals I would do in the past, I'd take less on the deal than anyone else, so that always take your call in the future. I knew that I wanted to have that kind of collateral and equity with them for the future. So anytime
Hmm.
I call, people always pick up because they know I don't call to waste time. It's always bringing them money or bringing them a deal or bringing value. When you come from the wrong side of the tracks, you're never really invited to the parties. But if you come to the parties with a gift, you're always invited to the parties. People don't like that harsh reality of the truth, right? I recognize it. It's like, you're not invited to the country club. Like, I'm never going to be invited to the country club in Brookline. I'm not that guy. I don't come
Hmm.
from, let's be honest, the Lucky Sperm Club, right? So
Yeah.
when you're not, it's okay, but you have to accept it. And you have to move on. You say, all right, how, if I have a need to want to go into that country club, how do I get into that country club in Brookline? Bring a value, right? What's the value?
Hmm.
Okay, your value proposition is, your value add is what? So I've always brought value to everything that I've done by having a unique, it could be as simple as, people are so dumb. They think you need money and this and that. I have a friend that has gotten into great situations back in the day by just always having a portable charger for people's phones. I mean, people's phones are their lifeline. So if you just have a portable charger, you could be going out for the night with whoever, Travis Scott and Kylie Jenner, because they forgot their charger that night. You have a charger and now you're with them, right? Like, oh, bring this dude, he
Yeah.
got a charger. Like, it's just simple things. Everyone thinks that it's something special. You get a big date and now you're the guy with the gum, the mint gum. Now that your boy who's out with you, someone you meet out and you have that mint or you have that mouthwash or whatever it may be. you're priceless because they don't have time to go to CVS. So I think I learned that hustle from my grandfather. We used to go to the beach in the summer down the Cape, and he would always have like a 6-pack of like cold beers, and he didn't even drink, or cold soda. And I say, Papa, why do you always have that? He goes, we don't have money for the VIP spots. He goes, but what's better than money on a hot day? And I said, what? He goes, well, that parking attendant wants a cold drink. He goes, that will get you the VIP spot every time, right? So what was the 6-pack of Coke or Pepsi back in the day? Like $2. So everyone has $2. Not everyone had $40 for that VIP parking spot at the beach. But if you have that
Hmm.
Coca-Cola, you're the man, right? That's the crack.
Yeah.
So yeah. So, not to digress, but you had asked about Tommy and Tyson, and more or less of how I got there was bringing in the right relationship. Sorry, I just have to fix it there. Bringing in more or less the right relationships at the right time, and then
Hmm.
capitalizing by. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
We cut out for a second there. Sorry. What I was saying is bringing the right deal in, the right relationship at the right time is more or less of what I did with Tyson. I went out, showed up. I didn't have any guarantee that we are going to do anything. I just got in front of him and I said, hey, I'll be back in touch in a few days. I went out and I said, do I have your permission to, get a deal or whatever, bring deals or whatever it was? And he said, yeah, absolutely. So within 24 hours, I had already had deals locked up because,
Hmm.
I just knew what I wanted to do. And I knew if I could connect two parties ahead of time, as long as I got the acceptance from Tyson, I'd be fine. So that's what I did. I went out and connected him, and I saw him as a massive brand. When I saw him singing in the ring was more important to me than the boxing, because he went out and sang his song after the fight, and the whole crowd was singing. And if you look at it, Muhammad Ali didn't do that. Mayweather's never been able to do that. No one's been able to do that. So when I saw Tyson's brand, I was like, this is crazy. It's so awesome. And just showing up, that's half the battle. I showed up, I made it happen. And it's we've been riding right along ever since. And we did that video, as you saw. I wrote and produced that video, the Jakey video. Did you see that video?
Yeah, I saw that.
And I mean, look, it was super cringe, but the reality was I needed to make certain that my objective was to get attention of Jake. And I knew by bringing Shaq in would help. So when Shaq came to Boston years ago, I don't, I got him a place in Boston, or like another time I was with him in Miami or whatever. And I've just always kind of just been cool with Shaq, never asked autographs, pictures, nothing of him, just built a real relationship with him. So when I said, hey, I don't call Shaq when I'm down, in Miami or whatever. I only call him when it makes sense. You know what I mean? He's so busy and he has so much on his plate. The last thing he wants to do is go to the movies with me. You know what I mean? Like, or
Yeah.
dinner. But when you're bringing things of value, he's psyched. He's like, yeah, let's go. Everyone's human. Everyone wants to hang out. So we did that video. We went to Prime 112 in Miami, and it was awesome. It was just an organic video, but it's all about being prepared. I wrote that whole thing out. Everyone was like even Tyson's like, what are you doing? Like, this doesn't make sense. I go, bro, just trust me. And I told Tommy too, just trust me. And then, it was super cringe, but I know we needed to be a little cringe and to be a little funny and to be a little different to get that attention we needed. And Tyson's son jumped in the mix. Who doesn't like a little kid with a British accent? That was hilarious, right? It's like bringing a
It's true.
puppy or a dog into a video. Everyone, you can't fully hate on a puppy or a dog or even a little kid with a British accent. So that's what we did. I wrote that video up, put it together, and we let it rip. And that's why Tommy's fighting Jake now.
Hmm. How are you able to maintain those relationships with, how you say, everybody, somebody from almost every single city? How are you able to just keep in touch with them and just maintain that
Where
relationship?
people make the mistakes all the time. I see it all the time. People make the mistakes, and it was harder when I was doing it because you didn't have the beauty of text. Well, you had text, but it wasn't as quick as text. There's so many sources of communication, but here's what every idiot does, right?
Hmm.
St. Patrick's Day, right? Southie, right? You probably get a million
Hmm.
calls from people that you generally never even talk to, right? Imagine how
Yeah.
much easier and how much more of a priority you would put those people on a list if they reached out to you many times before St. Patrick's Day, just to organically check on you and authentically be like, hey, what's up, bro? Just thinking of you. I was up in New Hampshire and whatever, just like real stuff. Like anytime I would think of someone in my network and I could touch them for a moment, not because I had
Mhm.
a sales pitch coming 6 months down the line, but because you have to maintain your relationships. I might just reach out to someone randomly and be like, hey, what's up? Just want to say hi, talk, say what's up. You know what I mean? Shoot the shit,
Mhm.
be real. Ask them about,
Yeah.
their family or ask them about what's going on in their life. Listen to them.
Mhm.
People don't want to do that. You wouldn't believe how many people hit me up. And girls, girls are the worst too. Like right before the fight. Oh, hey, what's going on? Nothing. How are you? You know what I mean? I'm not mad at them, but
Mhm.
be a little more creative. Like reach out to me for a bunch of times before the fight. You know what I mean? Like girls
Yeah.
traditionally don't network well. Not all of them. And I just think a lot of girls just think because maybe they're attractive or whatever, they can make the call 20 minutes before the letting of the club. You know what I mean? It's like,
Uh-huh.
no, that's not the way. Authentically and organically and reach out to people and really truly care about them. And that's what I try to do. And people accept it better. They take your call better. And especially if you call people, that's not just a maintenance call when you're actually bringing them a value. Just think about if you're a good person and you're an attractive person and or not even attractive, you're just a person that doesn't cause problems and doesn't cause headaches and you're always kind of sharp. That person reaches
Mhm.
out to you, you want to help them. You know what I mean? They're a good person. They're not a
Yeah.
nuisance. They're not trouble. They're not risk. You want to help them.
Would you say one of the things you've always been great at is being a people's person?
Yeah, like I definitely, I definitely a people's person. What I've learned to do more though, as you get a little older is, I had a very sharp tongue growing up. And a lot of reason why people have sharp tongues is because they're insecure. Like, you growing up in the city, you saw it, how ruthless some kids can be with shitting on people or comebacks or whatever.
Yeah.
And all that stems from is insecurity, right? So I was a chubby kid growing up. So I used to sit there in my head and say, all right, if someone's going to come at me, you just can't fight everyone. You can't beat everyone up because, it's just not the right way to go. But
Mhm.
verbally, you can really stab people, right? So when
Yeah.
someone would say something to me, I'd already have like 4 comebacks on their mother, their sister, their aunt, their cousin, their dad. I'd know all their dirt and I'd just be stabbing them. Like, you want to go there, brother? All right, let's keep going. I wish that
Yeah.
I wish that I could be, if I could go back. I remember a kid came up to me later on in life. He's like, hey, I want you to know something. Like, what? He's like, what you said to me that day was really ruthless. And I'm like, well, bro, like, I don't know. I didn't mean it. Like, he's like, it stuck with me for a long time, what you said. And it wasn't even anything crazy. I said to him, it was just something that was a little harsh. But what I replied to him is I said, look, you don't realize it, freshman year, sophomore year, you know, I got cut from the hockey team. You made it. You know what I mean? Junior year, I barely played. You made it. You were the stud. You were the star. So when you said anything even light to me, it was times three because of your position. So when you said something even light to me, it was multiplied or magnified by three. So it even hurt a little worse coming from you. And I might be a big personality, but it still hurt because you seemed to be higher than me on the pecking order chart, even though he really wasn't. In my mind, he was. In his mind, he wasn't even close. But in my mind, he was because of where the source was and where it was coming from. So I think if I could go back, I would probably accept more of the verbal jousting and not be so harsh with my tongue and not just
Yeah.
butcher people, not just butcher people down. Because the more we take in, the more we relax, the more we breathe, and the less defensive we come, the better life we live. When people give me a hard time or difficulty, sometimes I'll just listen to what they're saying. I won't even
Mhm.
react. I don't smile at them. I let them get the best of me for that day because they really didn't get the best of me. They got the worst of themselves. And then 2 or 3 days, they're coming back to you, kind of feeling sorry. Maybe they had a drinking problem, drug problem. Maybe they had a mental lapse. Maybe they were just weak for the day. Maybe they were just in a mood and they get away with that with people. But when you stand strong, kind of like a tree, sometimes the wind will blow you around a little bit, but you're still
Mhm.
rooted and you still stand strong and everything works out your way. It still comes back. So I guess if I could look back, that's what I would share, not to be, so sharp tongue and not hurt so many feelings when you're younger. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Never,
When you're
never to go.
around, when you're around so many different groups, people act different at times. Are you always yourself, or around certain groups would you act different?
I'm always myself. It's because I realized how bad people stand out when they get like
Mhm.
giddy or starstruck. Like it's amazing. You'd see people that you'd never expect to get giddy and starstruck just turn into like literally like Tarzan hanging on people's nuts. It's so weird. It's so uncomfortable. It's like, look, I remember like old guy saying one time, he goes, everyone puts on one shoe at a time. And I always remember that. Like no matter where I think, you know what? I take that back. That is where I learned that. But I remember learning from someone in sobriety. Okay. Someone in
Mhm.
sobriety, someone who, is pretty close to you and your family or whatever, had said to me, no matter where you go, there you are when you look in that mirror. And I always remember that,
Mhm.
always stuck with me. I said, that's actually brilliant. No matter where you go, there you are. And that was coming from a person that had a serious addiction to drugs and alcohol or whatever they were because of, whatever they went through. And to see the purity in that sentence, it was like looking across a crystal clear glass lake. Like it was so clear, like a mirror, right? When someone says that to
Mhm.
you, it means so much more. It means more than any professor, CEO, or super famous person because those words were coming from straight from the heart and straight from experience. So that's no matter where you go, there you are, right? That solves it.
Mhm. Yeah, those are all the questions I have. I appreciate the time you took to talk to me.
Yeah, well, I think even more important than that, than my story is, talk to me a little bit about yourself. Tell me a little bit about you. I obviously know you're in Quinnipiac in college. I mean, what are your goals? What do you want to do, bud?
My goals, I've realized lately that I want to do more on air stuff, and I'm more of a people's person. I've been trying the off air producing stuff. Not a huge fan, but on air, I've been broadcasting games. I've been liking that, but overall, I think in the future, I can see myself starting like a more of a social media type thing once I get enough money to save up for like a camera or something. But I just
Sure.
want to keep maintaining. I started this doing interviews well over a year ago. My first one. I just sent a ton of messages to a ton of people asking interviews, and just some way former NBA All Star Antonio Davis is, oh yeah, I'll do one, and I kind of been sticking with interviews there. I'm trying to see if I get anything with interviews too, learning more about people through that, and say I don't get starstruck anymore as some people in the beginning I did, but just learning. I like learning how people they tendencies what they like to do. It's just but overall right now I don't know exactly what I want, but trying to write it on air. But I think talking to people one on one in groups is where I go best. So I'm hoping I get out of college maybe like an anchor somewhere. I'm not sure exactly, but I'm trying out everything.
Yeah, I think an anchor job and things of that nature is cool. Kudos to the people that do it, but I just think with the power of the internet, the playing field's really been leveled, and I think you could do some great things if you really want to. I mean, it really depends on how driven you are. Are you willing to give
Yeah.
up a Friday, and a Saturday night to do this stuff?
Yeah, of course. That I don't drink, I don't smoke. I never got into any of that stuff from just seeing about half of the
You probably
people.
just beat out 80 or 90% of your competition. Do you realize that?
Yeah, yeah, it's one thing
Totally.
I've always in college now being I see people do crazy stuff, and never got into that. I know my priorities. I'll take days off to get some work done.
You know what? That's awesome. And I think the other thing too, if I could share this with you, I think a great question for you in the future to ask is people are egotistical, right? Every single person's egotistical. And when people hear the word
Hmm.
egotistical, they think it's a negative. Egotistical is not necessarily a negative. It's just the ego of who we are. It's what we're about. Everyone likes to tell their story and talk. I think a great question you should ask in the future. You can call it the Chancellor question if you want. I'm just kidding. Yeah, I'll copyright that. Joking. I think one of the great questions you could ask people is like, hey, let's just say you're interviewing whoever in the future, Trey Young or whoever these like Devin Booker or the big Giannis or whoever it is, like one of these big basketball guys. What question is it that you wish that someone would ask you, and no one's even thought to ask you?
Uh-huh.
I think that's it. Like, I think that could really be cool
Yeah,
because
that'd
they
be a
can
good
get down a
question.
path and talk about things that they might really want to, you know?
Hmm. Yeah,
Yeah,
right now I've talked to 2 athletes, but I've talked to mostly just journalists because those people always, because journalism is one part where I could be going down to, but I try to get athletes, but they never, I never got an active athlete. I've sent out 100 messages, never got a response. But I got former NBA player Eric Strickland a few months ago, but I usually try to reach out as many people, and they don't respond. It's or whatever, but
well,
always just
how
reach
how
out. You
about
never know.
how about this? How about this? No promises, right? Hint, hint, wink,
Hmm.
wink. But I have enough relationships that there's zero reason why I couldn't get a big gypsy to do an interview with you because he'd love someone like your story because that's where
Uh-huh.
he started, right? He started somewhere and you've started somewhere. And, hopefully all your listeners have a real listen and stick with you for great things to come. And, your VIP type listeners, the people that are loyal to you as a following, maybe those are the people you gift with the first college radio interview will be with you. So I think we should do
Yeah, that
something
would
really
be
cool like
great.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, I would love that. Always get something like that. I'll be able to capitalize on it.
Well, no, I think that's something that we could easily do. We just got to find the right time. As you know, Tyson's super, super busy with everything he has going
Yeah.
on. He has so much time for even family that we we could find something. A lot of times it's just being prepared. And when you get that
Hmm.
call, have your questions written down, everything ready to go. And
Yeah, of course.
it's as easy as that, big guy. So look, I'm always here to help. I love to see people succeed. I like to
Hmm.
see people that have really tried to succeed too. So I know a little bit about your background and your upbringing. I remember things about you, but I just love what you're doing with your life. I mean, you're kind of a unicorn coming from your surroundings and background, and there you are,
Hmm.
out at a beautiful college doing great things. And it certainly wasn't gifted to you, my man. I'm very proud of you.
No, thank you. I appreciate it big time.
And let's get together soon. And who knows, maybe next time I'll have the big Dasa with me.
Definitely. I appreciate that a lot.
All right, brother. We'll get together soon, and God bless.
Definitely. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you, brother.